Hello everyone, Blue Star Saber here once again to do another TV show review, but this time of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, both the first and second episodes. Now, I've been a fan of Rick Riodan's book series for a very long time. In fact, it's arguably my favorite fictional book series. And I got into it through the first Percy Jackson movie, which was a choice my brother wanted to go to see to the cinema, and my mum took me and him to see it. Now, I remember liking the film at first. I did not realize it was a book adaptation at the time. And eventually, I came to see the books and enjoyed them. Now, granted, I know that most of the fandom does not like the first film, like the film series, though at the very least, because they don't really accurately follow the books, including Rick Riordan himself. But I do have a sort of soft spot for at least the first film, as I do think it's at least its own solo little entry film. Though I will admit, as an adaptation of Percy Jackson, I can see why it's disappointing. Anyway, it's Boxing Day here in the UK. I hope everyone enjoyed their Christmas and all that. So yeah, as I'm about to review the second attempt to adapt the series by Disney Plus, this time with the involvement of Rick Riodan, and instead they decided to turn it into a TV show. Now, granted, there's been a lot of debate and interest in the show, but also well as controversy with some of the casting, particularly the casting role of Annabeth Chase. But anyway, I'm here to see just how, regardless of the casting choice, how accurate the books are, how accurate the show is to the books, and what are my views. Well, we're about to find out. With like the first episode, I accidentally vaporized my pre-algebra teacher, which is actually based off the first chapter of the Percy Jackson books. So, yeah, the episode begins with pretty much the narration you got from Percy's from the books about how he would see about being a Greek demigod, how he saw these monsters. Everyone doesn't believe him, and everyone thinks he's crazy. But he ends up befriending someone called Groover Underwood, in which he's the only one that seems to like at least not think he's crazy for seeing these monsters, and even plays a monster game with him. From what we've seen of the thing, he's bullied by a girl called Nancy Bowfist, or Nancy Blowfist, or Bobo Fist. I think I'm reading it out. Let's see. I'm not sure if that's how they called it in the original series, but yeah, she seems to match the description. She seems to be one of the ones that match the description at the very least. But yeah, Percy and Groover just being chaperoned by both Mrs. Dodds and Mr. Burner. Mrs. Dodds being more hostile, while Mr. Burner being a very helpful teacher and telling Percy how he's special, and gives him this pen. And during which Percy and Groover are talking about the fountain, in which Percy expresses the desire to hurt Nancy, but Groover suggests against it. But after Nancy throws some food at Groover, Percy gets mad and starts to stand up to her, unintentionally using the force of his own demigod powers to push her into the water, but he doesn't realize this, but everyone thinks he pushed her. At this point, Miss Dodds turns into a fury, I believe, and then tries to attack Percy, but he stabs her with a pen that turns into a sword, the screen disintegrating her. Unfortunately, when he wakes up from the fight, when he talks to Grover and Mr. Burner, they say they have no recollection of someone called Miss Dodds, but as a result of seemingly pushing Nancy, the principal has expelled Percy from the school, with Groover saying that he saw Percy push him, seemingly betraying his best friend. Eventually, Percy returns home, in which he encounters his stepfather, Gabe, who is a sort of gambler with horse bets online, who seems to get in a very hostile argument with Percy, and but his mother is here, and she pretty much believes him, but decides to give him a blue bag of jelly beans, and tells Gabe that they're going to go to Montauk, which Gabe is against, but she offers, like, let's see, what she's going to do is, like, brings back some certain sandwiches after their trip, and then they head to Montauk, which granted, we got a flashback earlier of Percy remembering his mother talking about, let's see, the hero Percy also slayed monsters, and talking about whether or not every heroes are good and not all monsters appear evil. And this gets to a bit of an embarrassing situation when he accidentally shouted out his mom, asking his mom's name, which Nancy marked earlier, but that's just a bit of a narration. I thought I just might as well just bring in what I remembered. But anyway, they go to the cabin in which Percy talks about how he feels out of place in the world and feels betrayed by Grover. And then eventually this leads to Sally to tell Percy that this cabin is actually where he met his true father. And it reveals to him that it's a god. Percy thinks, like, at first this is like god, as in the Christianity one, but now talks about like the Greek gods. But Percy thinks that her mother is just lying until Grover shows up and reveals that he is a satyr with his goat legs, and talks that the monsters are getting close, in which they then drive away and they're attacked by the Minotaur. After a bit of a chase fight, they eventually arrive to Camp Half-Blood, which Sally Jackson offers to distract with, like, a scent of Percy's coat, and the sort of monster goes after her, in which captures her and seemingly disintegrates her as she turns to dust. And this is where Percy charges towards the Minotaur despite Grover's protests, and as a result ends up fighting him, eventually losing the sword, but cutting one of the horns strong enough to stab it in the skull of the head, seemingly killing it with then it's like a centaur and a bunch of campers, including Annabeth, watching over Percy, welcoming him into Camp Half-Blood, ending the episode on that cliffhanger. Now, overall thoughts on the episode. Well, we've got Walker Scobell, I think, played a decent job as Percy, even though he doesn't physically match all the descriptions. Like, I think Percy has black hair and sea green eyes, but I think the eye thing can be excused. The black hair bit, I will admit, let's see, I think it was Logan Paul. Wait, hold on, let me just get the film Lightning Thief movie. I think it was yes, it was Logan Lerman who portrayed Percy Jackson as in the Percy Jackson films. Now, granted, he was older, though. I think at the very least he would probably match a more older Percy Jackson description, at least appearance-wise, than let's say Walker Scobell. But at the very least, I think he's done a good job. The only bit of his performance I thought was weak when he was shouting "Mom" when the Minotaur disappeared. But other than that, I think he was fine in the role. Let's see, Aryan Shimodari. I've forgotten. Let's see. Sorry if I mispronounced his name improper, but I think he played fine as Grover. Granted, it is very Sorry about that, folks. I'm not exactly at my house. I'm at my mother's, and my brother's he just came by the kitchen. So I had to mute to make sure you didn't hear all that. But anyway, where was I? Ah, yes. Let's see. Grover. Let's see. The movie was played by Brandon T. Jackson, which was a let's see. Now, granted, Grover I think was like a bit of a more of from what I can recall, Grover. Let's see. Grover was a Caucasian with brown hair, but as we know, Ian Shimhadari is of Indian American descent with black hair, so not exactly the same portrayal, but as we know, let's see, Brandon T. Jackson I believe, is African American, so it's not the first time Grover has been portrayed by a person of color instead. So I think it was fine, regardless of I think it was fine, regardless of whether or not he portrayed let's see which casting of the person's color portraying the character, but granted, I wouldn't be surprised that there were some fans who are unfortunately very disappointed that he wasn't book accurate once again. But at the very least, I think this version of Grover Underwood was a much more faithful adaptation to the books than the Grover Underwood from the film series. As granted, I don't think this one is a bit as lacks of confidence and maybe a bit more afraid, but is definitely a bit more reluctant to get into fights with let's see, reluctant to be a lot less confident. This one's a lot less confident and not one to get into fight, as we saw in the films. Grover Underwood end up beating Gabe's butt a lot more than say like this one who would try to avoid a fight with Nancy. But one thing that I will say that let's see. Now, granted, I think the film version at least kept the crutches that Grover used to hide his Sato appearance. Though I don't think I saw. I'm not sure if I saw the crutches in this episode. I think they might have removed it. I could be wrong. I know it's been about a day or two since I last saw the episode, but I did watch it twice, so there's that at least. But yeah, but I think he seems to be a bit more of gritty, a bit more of like don't get into fights Percy personality than the books ones that would probably get more into the fights himself. But yeah, I think he did a decent job. Granted, they did one change with the Percy and Grover dynamic, but I think this was a necessary change from the books where let's see in the books Percy got expelled for snapping at a teacher, which I believe, let's see, from what I can recall from the wiki, the name of that teacher was. Hold on, let me just see. Let me see. Let's see, the teacher's name was apparently Mr. Nicole, calling him an old sot. But he's expelled for apparently pushing Jan to sea in the fountain. And Grover said that this was the truth. Let's see, seemingly betraying Percy in this, as a result, even though he did this to try and get him out of the school. Now, granted, this is an interesting change, but it seems that this will cause a few trust issues, at least with Percy and with Grover initially, because it's like your best friend kind of betrays you. But granted, this plays in a bit more with Grover's character, at least for the next episode, at the very least. So it's an interesting change, but I can see why they did this. I think they don't want to spend too much time in the school and like Percy being expelled after failing a bunch of exams and then just taking along with the teacher. It's like get to the next part straight away. So I understand that. There's also like one change that I think was kind of neat, which originally when Percy was with us kids and seeing all these monsters, he saw like a mechanical rhino and a black and a Pegasus. Many I think assumed to be blackjack. This is I think many people assuming to building up the hype of when Percy eventually meets Blackjack in the Sea of Monsters, and then of course eventually the Titan's Curse. So I can see why they would do this change. Though I will admit it's a lot different from when the books, where one of the monsters Percy actually met was a Cyclops. So that was different, and I thought that was perfectly fine. So I think it's kind of nice that they actually, I think this change is acceptable, especially we're seeing, I like seeing the idea of Blackjack appearing earlier. In fact, I do like that there might be some characters that appear earlier in the show compared to the books as to build a bit more tighter world building, as I think the show can do that. But yeah, so I like that. Also, for the sort of the Riptide sword coming, let's see, being given to Percy straight away by Mr. Burner. Now, granted, we know in the books that he was given the sword briefly to fight Miss Dodge, which is more inside than outside. Let's see, he's actually keeping the sword and ends up using it to fight the Minotaur. Same again when in the films. In many ways, it's a change that is very similar to the films, though it does have this time let's see, if it falls out your pocket, it always comes back trope. But granted, you don't see that until the next episode. But it seems that Riodan's at least accepted one change from the film that what probably made sense, and that was giving the sword early, which I think it's fine. Some might be a bit annoyed, but I think it works for the adaptation, and I think it makes it more understandable how Percy's able to break the horn and then kill a Minotaur with it, because that doesn't happen in the books. And while that was, we had Percy being quite creative and trying to find out how to face the Minotaur, I think this is a bit more simpler and much more easier to follow instead of trying to make it a bit more of a complicated fight. But not that the fight in the books is all that complicated, as it ends, I think, in a similar way with Percy using the own horn to kill the Minotaur. It's been a while since I've read the first book, so I think that works. Now, the actor who played Gabe, let's see, from what I can tell, there isn't really any differences with Gabe, except that he plays poker with his friends, but he's doing like betting horses on the internet. That's the only real difference, but he's still pretty much a bit of a jerkwad who doesn't believe Percy, that it was not his fault from getting expelled, and doesn't seem to like the kid. Seems to be a bit of a jerk to Sally, though maybe not as bad as the books one and even perhaps the film one, from what I can tell. But hold on. Let's see. Granted, I think I think Rick Riodan is apparently an Academy staff member that was uncredited in this, so that's kind of nice. But anyway, where was I? Hold on. Oh yeah, you've got someone. So you've got Tim Sharp as Gabe Ugolino, or what's he, Smelly Gabe. This is a much more different portrayal than this appearance is a lot different from like the Smelly Gabe from like the films, which was portrayed by let me just see. I'm just trying to find the Wikipedia page. Gabe, Smelly Gabe. Oh yeah, Joe Pantalano, which I can't recall what exactly the description Gabe had. I'm not. I know in the graphic novels he had hair, and in the let's see, Joe Pantolino is bald. But I will admit, I think I do in some ways, even though I might not let's see be it well from like the book's visual thing. I always imagine Smelly Gabe as the film version. So and I guess the film version makes me more think of like this is a type of this is guy's a poker player. This guy is gets a drunk and have gambling and all that stuff. I don't really feel that much with like the one the show does, but at the very least, I think he does a decent performance of what he does. So yeah, and I think the Sally Jackson that they've chosen for the show. Hold on, let me just oh yeah, for let's see, Virginia Cole compared to I think hold on, let me just see if I can find it. See, Sally Jackson played by she was played by Catherine Kerner, who only played like her for like the first film. Didn't really get a chance to play in the second film, but I think she did a good job of playing Percy's mother. Interestingly, she ends up telling Percy about the gods a lot sooner in the Britsy show and the books. Now, granted, I think one thing that much better in the show did was stick to the fact that she didn't reveal like Percy's father was Poseidon, and compared to like what the film did, where it's outright say that he was the son of Poseidon, but they didn't really name the big. They didn't do that prophecy of the big three during that, or the fact that the Greek gods banned from having free kid, that having their own big three banned their own kids, having more demigod kids after World War II, all that kind of stuff. But I think she played the role well. But I think she's a lot more assertive in like telling Gabe that we're going to like their sort of like holiday trip, which I think she tries to play a bit more nice than that. Doesn't like assert herself, but it seems to be a bit different from like the book's portrayals at the very least. Though granted, I do wonder if that means that are we going to get the infamous Gabe slap towards the end of the book when Sally and Percy come back, but who knows? We'll just have to wait and see on that part. But who knows? But I think she's a bit more confident, and even when she was taking the sort of Minotaur's jacket to distract the Minotaur to save Percy. But one thing I found interesting is oops, hold on, I may have oops, accidentally hold on. Sorry about that. I accidentally clicked into a different tab. Oh, sorry about that. That was just an ad for something that came up. I've managed to pause it before then. Hopefully that hasn't stopped my video from continuing. Sorry about that. But I'm having lots of technical difficulties tonight in this sort of live stream review. Sorry everyone. But anyway, oh yeah, was I? But yeah, she ends up telling Percy much more about the Greek gods and all that stuff, saying that it's all true. But I do like how Percy's reaction is like, it's a lot more serious than I think in the books did it, but I think Percy just not believes. I think this was a decent choice for what they did for the show. So I thought that went well. Granted, anyway, let's see. Mr. Burner, I think, is portrayed by Mr. Burner, who of course would be later revealed to be let's see, Chiron, who is played by Glenn Turman, which who I believe is an African American actor. While I think in the let's see, can't. There we go. Yeah, is in the books he's a Caucasian with brown hair, and his lower half, of course, is a white stallion, but it's but that of a black stallion. In the show, granted, the movie wasn't exactly accurate as well, though arguably the actor, I believe, you had let's see, Piers Brosnan, or like one of the fifth actor played James Bond, was originally the role of Chiron in the first one. I think in the second one you had who was it? Sea of Monsters. Let me just get that up quickly. I think it was Anthony Hurd, which I think was end up playing a bit more accurate looking stallion, at least stallion body, but yeah, but that was, I think, who played in the thing. But I think he does is a very helpful teacher, and you can clearly see that he wants to help Percy and all that. Well, granted, I've already mentioned the one change at the book was already done, and I think that was fine for what they did. So yeah, but anyway, I think the real thing is like what I enjoyed the most was actually the CGI effects on the Minotaur, which I thought was very well done. I really like the detail of it, and in fact, they even got the underpants thing, which I think was in the books. So I thought that fight. I thought that fight went pretty well. I mean, it involved the sword, and I think it had Percy killing her using its own horn to stab in the head, and it disintegrated into dust. So I think that went pretty well with like the fight and then disintegrating. Granted, there's not that golden Ichor I saw, but at the very least, it didn't shy away from showing Percy stabbing it and then disintegrating. So there's that, and it also sort of grabbed Sally Jackson and disintegrated that, but though that was more of Hades' power in the last book. Other than that, I think the one change I found a bit odd was the fact that Miss Dodds attacked Percy in broad daylight and then have him hide in the building. I kind of felt like that was okay. That should have been pretty noticeable, but I guess the whole mist explanation would say okay, well, no one can remember Miss Dodds or saw them fight, but I feel like that is a little bit silly. No, granted, I wonder if that means that the Ares and Percy Jackson fight will be like the graphic novel where they don't fight in the public area, but they fight in some place like a beach instead. In fact, I think the trailers might imply that might end up being the case, but I could be wrong. Who knows? Overall, for the first episode, I think I'll give it a 9 out of 10. I think it was a pretty good opening episode. Granted, perhaps it's a bit short, but then again, that's probably why you have like the second part coming out, second episode coming out. I think it would adapted arguably Percy Jackson fighting Miss Dodds in school to the encounter with the Minotaur. Those are the first episodes, and you even got a cameo of Annabeth at the end. So I thought that was nice. So you could technically say that Annabeth has been in all episodes. But yeah. But anyway, now on to the second episode. I become Supreme Lord of the Bathroom, and this is clearly the episode is titled off the chapter in which Percy meets Clarice. But yeah. So Percy. Oh yeah, I should probably also mention that there was this voice of tempting Percy, of this mysterious man. I assume that this is probably Kronos, but let me just see if there is. I don't see. I don't see Percy. I don't see any description of it, but it's like in Percy's dreams. But yeah, after a few days of being let's see After a few days of Percy being unconscious after the Minotaur attack, he wakes up and sees a mysterious girl who is Annabeth Chase saying that he draws in his sleep, so they kept that from the books, though perhaps not in the order that we expected. Eventually, he is greeted by Grover, who's happy to see him awake, but sees the Minotaur horn that he kept to prove that he did do it. But Percy realizes that it's all real and thinks that his mother's dead, walks off looking for like his father, since he realizes that they're at the camp that a mother described they were going to earlier. And then sees a man covered, with in a sort of Hawaiian shirt, although I think people described the wiki describes it being covered on a potato, I think. For those who are wondering, I always use the wiki to remind me of any details that I might have missed of the episode. But the man is, Grover reveals that the man is Dionysus, the god of wine, though granted doesn't say that him outright that, but he keeps calling Percy Jackson something like Peter Johnson. Percy just asks him if he knows who his father is, and Dionysus lies and says that he's his dad, trying to get him to go get a beer or some sort of like alcoholic drink. But this is when, of course, Mr. Burner comes in, revealing himself to be Chiron, tutor of guards, and you see his wheelchair next to where Dionysus is, but you see him in his full stallion form, and Percy's trying to say that he's just trying to talk to his dad, but Chiron says that Dionysus is tricking him, he's not his dad, and that he does this to every demigod, trying to tell him to like him, because he knows that he's been punished by his father Zeus to drink wine and other alcohols, and so he's warning him that he's trying to have a guard's trying to get him to just do his own his own tasks for him, because that's what Greek gods tend to do with demigods. Anyway, Grover wants to join Chiron as he's trying to explain everything to Percy, but he tells him to stay put. Dionysus congratulates him on doing a good job well done, but Grover doesn't feel like something was wrong, but tells him to put it aside. Anyway, Chiron sort of explains to Percy what Camp Half-Blood is, a safe haven for demigods like him, showing him the cabins. Percy wonders if see which cabin is his, but he goes in the Hermes one since he's unclaimed, so as Hermes takes both his own kids and those who have not been claimed by demigod parents. Percy wonders when he'll be claimed, with Chiron saying that Chiron says that the gods, it's unknown when the gods will decide to claim them, if at all. Well, Percy realizes that if at all, so some realizes that some are never claimed, which sort of depresses him, but eventually takes them into the Hermes cabin, telling them that they have a new arrival and asks them to treat him well. But they sort of just ignore him, but to a bit, or they just go back to usual activities as Percy is just entering the cabin. They do stare at him, some do whispers about what he did, but he's staying by a bunk where he finds a bag with his mother's blue jelly beans, but eventually he ends up being greeted by Luke Calrissian, who I think also you have Chris there, from one of the future books, telling him that he's being an understanding friend, if you will, to Percy about what he's been through, and says that everyone here is beer than that, and is trying to help him explore camp around, and trying to explain the rules to him, and even defends him from Clarice, who barges in when he's going out to show activities to Percy, and she doesn't believe that he's a hero and all that. Meanwhile, Grover's meeting, I believe, a tree nymph. I'm not sure if this is Jupiter or maybe possibly Grover's mother, but in tells her that the Council of Cloven Elders are here to see him as he goes to see them and tells them what he's seen, which Percy Groove eventually goes back to tell Chiron and Dionysus while they're playing poker that Percy Jackson's alive, and they kind of figure out this was the case as they realize that Hades probably sent her to the underworld to when she was near death, possibly to use as a hostage against Percy. But Grover thinks they should tell Percy, but they said no, it's not the best time for now, with Grover saying he doesn't really want to lie to Percy again. But Dionysus then suggests that he just not hang out with Percy. But yeah, at some point you kind of have like I might have gotten a bit out of order with the hilarious bit, but Percy has a dream, hearing a voice saying that these people here don't trust him and all that stuff, or his own father's not here. Let's see, he wakes up. Everyone realizes that he has a dream, and Luke says that don't worry, this is what every demigods have, as well as like ADHD and dyslexia. And during this part, this is where Percy learns about the merits of camp and like glory and all that stuff. And this is where he met Clarice, but Luke stops her, of course. And then Percy realizes that, let's see, if Percy gets reputation like Luke does, because Clarice knows not to mess with Luke, he might get his father to acknowledge him. Luke doesn't try and don't get to be too hopeful, but decides to like, okay, you know what, I'll try and help you, at least find out what you're good at. And they go to like archery, which Percy nearly shoots an entire group of archers when he were in the opposite direction of like the Hydra target that he was aiming for. Then goes to the forges and end up causing one of the metal swords to go flying, I believe. And then Josie fails at both, which like Luke's then sitting with Luke and Chris Rodriguez, wondering if there's a god of disappointment. With I think Chris mentioning this one god, but mentions that she's a she. I've forgotten the name of the god, sorry. But then Luke tells them about the offerings they need to do for their food to the gods, they like the smell and all that stuff, and so that they need to do like a sort of important offering. Then Percy gets the idea to try and do his own separate one, where burning the blue jelly babies, trying to talk to his and try and make a prayer to her, hoping that she can hear it, saying that he has now true friends with Luke and Chris, but as well as angry at his father. That but he promised that he will get his father to pay attention. And just as Percy's trying to return to the cabin with the other Hermes kids, he is ambushed by, well, pretty much Clarice and a few of her siblings, as they try to get him to admit that he's a fraud and all that stuff, but Percy just tells them trying to leave him alone. But they try to then put his head into a toilet, I think a swirl, if you will, but Percy, unintentionally unlocking his water powers, brushes them all away. And at this point, Annabeth appears, and let's see, Percy recognizes from the infirmary, and then she says that wasn't her until like Percy gets into quite the description, saying that let's see, okay, so you have met me, and explains that her name is Annabeth and been watching him for some time, and decides that she wants him to join the her capture the flag team. Percy ends up talking to Luke about Annabeth, wondering why she's following him and that stuff. And Luke explains that she's been here at camp longest. She's like a sister to him. They tried to travel. They traveled with Skelphalion, who was a daughter of Zeus, who was broken from the Big Three Pact to not be born. Unfortunately, she died just before they got to camp. And as a result, let's see, Annabeth and him have been like brother and sister ever since. And so that's like that. And the reason that let's see, Annabeth is like been paying attention to like Percy for a week is because she's wondering whether or not that he is the demigod that Chiron promised her that would take her on a quest that even he can ignore. And normally she usually gives up of a day with every new demigod, but Percy is the longest she's staying around. So Percy is a bit reluctant to believe that it's him. Luke says that Annabeth might be correct, given that her intuition is usually spot on. So yeah. But anyway, he helps him get ready for the capture the flag. We see Chiron mentioning all the rules and all that stuff. Percy wondering if he like needs like a helmet or like a shield, but I can't recall which one it was. But eventually, when he hears the cheers of the demigod, he realizes, okay, yeah, I definitely need to be more prepared. Let's see, Luke is leading the mostly the flank, while Percy is accompanied by Annabeth to follow her. Percy tries to tell Annabeth he's not really that skilled and doesn't really want to try and embarrass himself, even though he kind of trips himself, but asking that she wants to don't expect too much, not for her to expect too much from him, but asks her not to get her in a situation that would embarrass him because he's trying to prove his worth to his father. But Annabeth just tells him to relax and trust her, I think, if you will, or say that she's got a plan, showing her the invisibility hat and telling him he'll do great. Though he still has no idea what his role is, and let's see, we see Luke doing a successful ambush against the opposing team. Apparently, Annabeth has led the last 3 teams in a victory in a row, and this time it's rare to get a 4th, but Luke believes they can. With Chris worried about let's see, that they might encounter Clarice, but Luke is confident that Percy can handle it, and you see pretty much Percy goofing off, I think flossing, doing sort of like peeing in the woods and petting a lizard, then sunbathing by a log before Clarice and a few of her siblings arrive to attack him. Percy tries to say where the flag is, but they want revenge. And he tries to say about the rules of no meaning, but Clarice says that she's fine with her not having her dessert privileges for a while. They end up fighting and eventually arrives to the beach. Eventually, Percy gets the upper hand, starts to beat them, and even destroy Clarice's spear, which she gets angry and tries to grab him and then try and punches him and all that stuff. But she realizes too late that the flag has been captured by Luke, and that was the end of the thing. With Percy realized that she was using let's see, as bait. Well, actually, not really as bait, but she has been watching him the entire time. He's annoyed and wondering why didn't she help out? But she apologizes to him for what she's about to do by shoving him in the water, which surprises the others. And then Percy realizes that he's healing. It's either he's healing from the water, as it's then as everyone then looks up and sees a trident above Percy. So we see with Chiron announcing that Percy has been claimed by Poseidon and that he now needs to move in cabin free as he is now one of the forbidden gods' sons. So so that we have that. And then we have next scene pretty much has Percy back in the big house where Iron and Ritzy Dinas explain that Percy what means to be Poseidon's son and believe that Zeus has stolen his master boat, and they now need Percy to go on a quest to retrieve it and to prove his innocence and prevent a war that's going to happen within a week. As Zeus did not know how Poseidon could have stolen his lightning bolt until now he's just claimed him, but Percy refuses because he's angry at his father and just wants to be more Sally Jackson's son, since she actually cared for him and doesn't really want to do this quest, but they say he doesn't really have a choice until Grover comes in, and even though they try to tell him not to, let's see, ask Grover not to reveal this, but Grover feels like that this is now the time to tell them that Sally Jackson is alive and has been held hostage by Hades of the underworld, as Chiron and Dionysus believe that he's the one behind the Master Boat's theft, as he hates both his brothers and is planning to plot them against each other. So, yeah, with this now revelation that his mother is alive, Percy is wanting to go and go on the quest and says, when do they leave? And that ends the episode. So, yeah, that's the end of the episode. So, yeah, that's it now. Marvel thoughts. I definitely say this episode is a bit more probably. There are scenes that are probably a bit more book accurate, but there's also quite a lot that are very different from the books as well. And I think in the last part, what they did, they worked. There were some changes that I probably would have preferred stuck to the books, but yeah. But anyway, you've pretty much got let's see, Lee Savers Jeffrey, a sort of I believe a African American, I think, portraying Annabeth, compared to I believe you had oops, that's a TV series. I want the film, compared to now granted you had Alexandra Daddario, who didn't look like Annabeth, who didn't have the blonde hair and had brown hair instead, though granted they changed that more to see monsters to make it a bit more book accurate. But now so neither is like accurate to the book ones at first, pretty much, well, because Annabeth is a blonde with grey eyes. Now granted, this casting was arguably the most controversial of all the casting, because a person of color was portraying Annabeth rather than a Caucasian, and I think that caused a bit of some very nasty online hate targeted towards the actress who's playing Annabeth in the show, which I honestly think was a bit of a dark day for the Percy Jackson fandom, because normally you'd expect the fandom to be a bit more welcoming and tolerant, because Rick Riodan himself is a bit of a very progressive guy. He's diverse. He's quite good at diversing the cast, particularly in like the Heroes of Olympus, with all the other Greek demigods and Roman demigods introduced, and also pretty pro LGBT. In fact, I argue that a lot of people that were delusioned with J.K. Rowling's views on trans moved to Percy Jackson with its more pro-LGBT material. So, now, granted, I'm not sure if there's been a trans character introduced in the Rick Riodan verse just yet, but either way, you kind of had Percy Jackson. Either way, you had like Percy Jackson's a very progressive book series in terms of diversity within the cast, and I think that's partly because Rick Riodan's a teacher who teaches multiple students of different backgrounds and all that stuff, and not to mention his own son who had ADHD and dyslexia, so he's quite understanding on that subject matter as well for disabled kids. So yeah, so it was a bit of a dark day that they received a lot of hate. That she received a lot of hate attacks. It's now granted. Now it was Rick Riodan and like the producers of the show's choice in the cast, and apparently they didn't really stick to book accuracy in terms of portrayal. They just choose the performance, and they believe that I believe it is Lee Savage Jeffries was probably the best of like all those who auditioned for Annabeth. Arguably, this is why also in the new Percy Jackson books, they're not really doing the description of like physical description of the characters compared to like the books, so they don't cause a bit of controversies and all that with like diversity. And granted, we're in a sort of time where changing the color, gender, race of of a character can cause quite a bit of backlash from those who are sort of like anti-woke or anti-SJWs or political correctness and all that stuff will cause complaints. But honestly, as from what I can tell from what she's given, granted, we didn't get much of her, as I think some of her roles were shifted to in this episode was shifted to either Chiron or Luke, which I'll get to a bit later. But I think she was fine with what she did, with what she was given. I think she did a good job in the line, "You drool when you sleep," even if it was not the bit where it was in the hospital bed rather than the actual big house where Annabeth gives Percy the tour, but instead you've got Luke and Chiron doing that. But let's see. And she didn't get splashed in the whole bathroom bit, but I think she did well of the bit. Granted, I do kind of wish that we did get a bit more of her scenes with let's see, Percy at the very least, because just so that Percy and Annabeth have a bit more of a closer bond, or at least a bit more of a sort of social bond. Let's see, sort of some sort of like prior relationship to the revelation that he is Poseidon's son, because, well, since Annabeth is the daughter of Athena, let's see, and Poseidon is Athena's rival, she has a bit of mistrust. And before the books, Annabeth suspects that Percy might be a child of the Big Three. Ideally, hopefully, suspecting that he is a son of Zeus, but then gets a bit disappointed that he's a son of Poseidon, and she realizes, like, oh, I was talking with Zeus. And of course, like the whole Poseidon and Poseidon and Annabeth rivalry, Poseidon and Athena rivalry will play into like their relationship at first before Percy tries to say, come on, there must have been a time when the two worked together. Now, granted, we do know in the films that there wasn't really that much of the rivalry thing, though Annabeth in the films did talk about it, but implied that she would have strong feelings for Percy, but she hasn't decided what it was. And they were on opposing teams and capturing the flag. This one was a bit more accurate with like Carice, so there was that. But no, granted, Annabeth in the movies didn't really get to show much of their smarts. So I think this one, you kind of got the idea of the whole capture the flag thing with like Annabeth using Percy to distract Clarice. Though it wasn't ever really outright stated, I think, like compared to like the books. So yeah. But I'm a little disappointed that Annabeth didn't get that sort of prior relationships, but I can see why they built it up with Luke. But I do wish that we got a bit more screen time with those two together. Maybe even like you could have had like Annabeth, like Luke introducing Annabeth to her Lakers. So I mean, you don't even see that fact that Annabeth has a crush on Luke. So I'm not sure if they're cutting that out. So you've kind of got that. Now, granted, let's see, the bit with the water was the revelation of like Percy being the son of Poseidon. That was changed to be a bit Annabeth being a bit more aggressive and pushing him in, rather than just saying just step in. Though, granted, I wonder if this is to try and cause a bit of tension between the two later. That would lead to like an adventure before they become friends. Who knows? Though, granted, we did not have the Hellhound attack, which, okay, I figured that's fine. Now, granted, it does lead to the more suspicion that Hades is behind the attack. Now, granted, the film did something else with like Hades sort of appearing in smoke in a fire. I can't recall if there were hellhounds or not, but telling Percy to bring the lightning bolt to him because he wanted to use it against his like two brothers. But yeah. So there was that. But at the moment, I think Annabeth, the actress who playing Annabeth is doing okay. I mean, there's not enough to really see her performance. She appears in a few pretty small scenes, so she's not quite main spotlight just yet. But I think she was fine, especially the whole Julia sleep thing. Now, interesting, you have Charlie Bushnell portraying Luke, which is different from Jake Abel, who portrayed Luke in the show. I mean, I think let's see, the actor who plays him has black hair rather than the sort of blonde thing. Granted, they still have given the scar, so there's that. Now, granted, he plays a much more bigger role in this episode than he would do in the books in this part of the whole thing. As he's the one that gives Percy a tour, helping. Now, granted, I think in the books he did try to help Percy find a skill. I'm not sure if that was just the graphic novel I'm thinking of. So they might be playing more to the graphic novel. They cut out the Aphrodite kids, though that was just Luke saying, "Oh, we might as well take a look at all the Aphrodite things," but after Aphrodite girls because they were gorgeous. But yeah, but I did like the sort of scenes of Percy trying both archery and the steel work. I did find it very funny that he's aiming at the Hydra, but then just aims at the other wing, and he aims at the group of archers trying to fire in a different training practice. And he asks, "Should I try again?" And they're all going like, "No, no, 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 no." So I thought that was funny. And then of course with the forge bit. Granted, I wonder if there was going to be a Charlie Bendock, but I don't see anyone that's being cast as him. So I thought I might have saw an African American that might have fit the African American actor who could have fit this description there, but I probably must be misinterpreting, but I could be wrong. But anyway, I do find it interesting that you have Chris Rodriguez appearing in the first season early, because he doesn't appear. Because he only appears as a minor character in the second book first, as one of the campers that have joined Luke, and he's being sort of another friend in the background, just giving general trivias and asking Luke if Percy's going to be all right and all that stuff. So I do wondering how that's going to play off, but I think pretty much what they're doing is building up more of Percy seeing Luke as a friend, telling him that it's all okay with the dreams, what's the merit you gotta do to try and defending him from Clarice rather than Annabeth. So I think they're sort of building up that sort of friendship in this one episode until the revelation that Luke is the lightning thief. Spoilers for those who have not. I should probably warn that since this is a book stream, that this is someone who's read the books. This is a spoilers for the books. So yeah. So books. So if you've not read the books, you're going to be spoiled. But yeah, Luke is the one that steals the Master Bolt. So I think that they pretty much covering the pretty much building up Luke and Percy's friendship in this one, as Percy thinks that he's a true friend when he does that messaging thing to Sally Jackson and the campfire and the burning of the food bit. So I think it's I can see why it's necessary to try and build up this friendship between Percy and Luke when the actual betrayal happens. And for all we know, Chris might be there, and maybe a few other background demigod characters that join him. We don't know, but at the very least, we do know that. But it does seem to imply that Chris was, at the very least, maybe Luke's right hand of the demigods. Let's see, that eventually betray the camp before he eventually, of course, he turns back to side after the events and him going to the labyrinth and Clarice saving him and him eventually entering a relationship. But I do wonder how that will play out, since Chris isn't there when let's see, Luke defends Percy from Clarice. So I do wonder how that will play out, but who knows? But I do think it's at least it is a nice choice that you're getting some of these characters appearing much earlier than they are. Granted, it seems like Charles Beckendorf and Selena, I think, aren't appearing sooner, nor is Ethan Nakama. That I could be wrong, and who knows, they might appear in the next few episodes, but it could be that they're waiting for the casting choices to come down the line in later seasons, hopefully after this first season has been a success. So we'll have to wait and see what the episodes are, what the remaining episodes are like, and the seasons. But yeah, anyway, Grover got his own storyline here of not feeling like he succeeded in his mission. I think something was up, which was Sally Jackson being allegedly dead. But then to see differences, he actually goes to meet the Counts of Clover and Elvers. Let's see, they did not appear in the book until the Battle of Labyrinth, so we got a lot more sooner. And I'm not sure which one is the one that Grover gets into clashes with in that book, but at the very least, I think it's nice to see them and then telling Grover what they saw. Then and then of course let's see. So I think it's, but I think the change they've done to here is to build more on Grover feeling guilty about, let's see, lying to Percy Jackson and betraying his trust, with Dinas and Chiron telling him not to tell Percy that their mother's alive, and to eventually that he decides to do it when he realizes that there was a way to get Percy on the quest, and tells him that. But I do sort of interesting. It seems to be building on more of this trust thing. Now, granted, at the moment, the whole search for Pan God and the whole searcher's license thing has not been revealed yet, but I have a feeling that this will play a part in the show yet, but we do not know quite yet. It will probably be revealed that Grover did try to rescue Thalia, though he's not the one that mentions the story of Thalia to Percy. That is Luke, as well as Luke explaining, I think, all the details. Granted, I think that might have actually been in the books about Percy and Annabeth waiting for every demigod to come out. But at the very least, it's been a while since I've read the books. But let's see. So the one change that they haven't really mentioned is the fact that Grover technically failed in his mission to retrieve Percy Jackson. As in the books, he was unconscious when the Minotaur attacked, and Percy dragged him, and they failed to save Percy's mother. So it's Grover looks like he's failed the second time when Percy just didn't listen to him and all that stuff about waiting for him. But Grover sort of lost him. Instead, there's no sort of subplot about that sort of searcher's license for the god Pan yet, God of the Wild. But for all we know, it could eventually play a role down in the later episodes. So I think that's still going to happen, but it's just not going to be mentioned yet. But who knows? It could. We'll just have to wait and see in that regards. Though I do believe it will play a part. But at the moment, it's not there. Instead, being more of the, just not being honest with Percy Jackson about the fate of his mother just yet. But I think that's fine for the time being. Now, granted, I do wish that we get at least granted, it seems like Grover's not talking to Percy just yet, but I think they are going to save it for later episodes. So I'm just bumbling on a bit now. Clarice, I'll admit, she doesn't look exactly like the gruff, tough girl that you would think, but I think the actress does a fine job. I think it's interesting that one change they do is that they're having her not believe that Percy killed the Minotaur instead as a fraud. But other than that, she's pretty accurate to what they want to do with Percy shoving in the toilet, getting revenge for that, and the capture the flag thing. I think she does a pretty good job. Now, let's see. Now, granted, Clarice doesn't appear until the second film, even though she does in the first one. But yeah. Oh yeah, I will say the actor who portrayed Luke in the film looks more physically accurate, I guess, than the show. But I guess that doesn't really matter too much. I thought the guy who played Luke did fine. But what was I? Ah, yes. Now, Dinus, I think, was or Mr. D played a pretty good job, and it's like, oh, he doesn't really seem to care much, or like, you don't have a choice, kid. Like the whole Peter Johnson thing, that was good, but as well as the fact that I think this is one change that he did was lying to Percy Jackson of being his father, which I will admit I paused to feel like what. Because I know that's not in the book, but I know that he's also lying. So I thought that was actually pretty hilarious, but it was just like a little bit hard to take in at first. But at the very least, I thought it was a very funny moment, and you kind of see Percy believing him. But granted, I'm surprised that Percy wasn't a bit more angry at Dinus for lying in that bit, but I think that's because of Chiron, which I do think. Let's see, the actor who plays him is doing a fine job. I mean, you do get that sense of being a wise teacher. I'm not sure there was any controversy with the casting choice with this one, like with Annabeth, but I think it was fine. So I thought that was good. Other than that, I think the fight scene with Percy and Clarice was fine. I mean, it didn't necessarily start with a creek and there was no hellhound, but I think but I do like that they did break the spear and all that stuff, though. Granted, they didn't really make it obvious that he stepped into the water and that's how he managed to defeat Clarice, but decent fight. Granted, I will admit, the whole flossing bit was not in the book. That's more because that didn't come out. That wasn't a trend that didn't happen before the books, but I can totally see a kid and it seems like they're making Percy and his lot much, let's see, more setting to more like the current years than say when the books came out, because the whole online horse betting with Smelly Gabe. So arguably there'll probably be the more trends will be here than like when the books came out, because I think like in Heroes of Olympus you have Leo controlling the ship with a Nintendo Wii control, but I doubt we'll probably have that here if we ever get to the Heroes of Olympus and like book adaptions. But yeah. So I thought the fight was pretty decent. What else? Oh yeah, I do like the sort of added scene I did of Percy trying to burn like his blue jelly beans to like contact his mother. I thought that was a nice touch, and I think it's interesting that he's trying to get Merritt to get his father, but I do find it a bit odd that when he does run his father, he's a bit reluctant to outright do the rescue mission for to recover the lightning bolt until like he's told that his mother's around. Now, granted, I think this was done to the sort of typical hero's journey to refuse the answer to the call, and then you get the arguments with like Mr. D and Chiron saying he has to, but he doesn't want to. But I don't know. I kind of feel like with like the whole episode making such a big deal of Percy wanting to find out who his father was, and when he does, he's reluctant to do so. Granted, I know in the books he's thinking that he's really wanting to try and rescue his mother, all that stuff. But yeah, but it's a lot different with the books where Chiron and Dee reveal everything to him, and even like Percy's mother, but they're trying to be more reluctant to hide it. It's only Groover tells them to do that. So yeah, that's different, but I think it's fine for what it is. It's not too big of a deal change. I mean, either way, it's a lot It's a lot more accurate than say the movies where Percy died Chiron's decision not to go rescue his mother from the underworld, and that you had him, Annabeth, and Grover sneak out to go rescue. And it's a lot different than Percy being the center of the capture the flag thing and fighting Annabeth instead of him being a distraction from Clarice. As I think that works, as Luke is still supposed to be the big shot, and Percy's just this new, witty, mysterious kid that just seems to have randomly managed to luckily beat the Minotaur. And it's not until everyone realizes, oh, he's the son of Poseidon, that he's actually important. So I think that sort of makes more sense for the underdog kind of thing that Percy has when initially coming to the camp, instead of him being the big star straight away. So there's that. And yeah, I think it also maybe a more accurate that of like let's see, them suspecting that Hades has stolen the lightning bolt than he does, which we see in the films. You just have Percy saying like, "Oh, I don't have it, so can you just please let my mother go?" So I think at the very least they're being a bit more accurate here. Let me see if there's any other changes that I've missed or differences from the show that I might have missed. Granted, there hasn't been a prophecy about facing Hades yet, though. Granted, that might happen in the next episode, so we'll have to wait and see. But overall, yeah, I liked what they've done with the episode. The Percy Clarice fight was pretty good. The encounters with her were pretty much book accurate, with the exception of like, "You're a fraud." I found that Percy just how everything he was doing to goof off was funny. Annabeth actress did okay with what she was given, though I wish she had more. I liked how they Luke, you had more time to have Luke befriending Percy, though even have Chris there before probably the eventual betrayal. And I do like that we had this little subplot of Grover talking to the Council of Elves, Council of Cloven, with like what happened to Percy and being forced to keep a secret about his mother. And that bit with Gritty Mr. D, who's just like this sarcastic director that doesn't really want to be here, then lying to Percy about being his dad. I thought that was, like I said, hilarious. Pretty much overall, and the Camp Half-Blood design, with the design, the sort of aesthetics and location, I think was all very good. It makes you think like you are actually at Camp Half-Blood. So yeah, overall, I'd probably also give this episode a 9 out of 10. It's a pretty good episode, and yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow's episode that will be on at 8 tomorrow, which hopefully I may get enough time to watch at some point during the day. No, I'll probably watch it a second time just before I review it, like I've done this time. No, hopefully on the actual day. Hopefully do the review on the actual day of watch it a second time compared to now. But yeah, overall, let's see, yeah, pretty good episode. And for those who end up listening, I hope you enjoyed what I have to say. Sorry for the few technical difficulties now and then. And yeah, hopefully next time that won't happen and I'll be at my own house. But for now, I am Blue Star Saber, signing off. Thank you for listening and goodbye.